Well, we're back. This is the second part of my girlfriend's Nuzlocke playthrough of Pokemon HeartGold. If you found your way here without seeing the first part, you may be a little confused, so I recommend catching up first. Either way, the most important thing you need to know is that this has been a bit of an emotional playthrough so far.
That was a massacre!
After toppling the Elite Four and becoming the new champion of Johto, she thought she was done. But boy, was there a curveball waiting for her after the credits rolled. So I guess you could say I made my girlfriend keep playing Pokemon HeartGold. Well, well, well. Look what the Espeon dragged in.
I have one Pokemon.
Understandably, after her encounter with Lance, she was left struggling a bit. Even the boat ride to Kanto was dicey because she only had one Pokemon to her name. All I could do was sit back in horror and watch anxiously hoping no one would have a dark type. I don't think she realized the peril she was in, as a psychic immunity would basically end her playthrough. Regardless, she made it in one piece and set to work.
I'm getting a phone call. Howdy. It's Alan, how are you? My tingle's getting stronger, exactly as I calculated. By the way, we knocked out a wild Pidgey just the other day. Setting up in advance worked. See you later.
One of the coolest things about the second generation has always been that it lets you go back and explore the world from the previous game 2 years later. You'd think that being in familiar territory would give her a little boost in confidence, but she could barely find her way around. I think she spent a little too much time in Johto because Kanto looks practically foreign. In all fairness, the new textures make things look quite a bit differently, although things would gradually click into place whenever she'd run into a familiar landmark.
There's a Snorlax. Shit, I gotta flute the Snorlaxes. God damn it.
I think the biggest reason she felt disoriented was that they drop her off in Vermilion City, which is right at the heart of everything. It's like she'd only ever thought of the world in relation to Pallet Town, so consequently she had no clue where she was. It was especially bad because Pallet was one of the last places she'd be visiting. Despite attempting to steer the player down an intended path, things are mostly left open for her to explore in an order she feels comfortable with. For her, that's both helpful and overwhelming.
Oh my god, so I'm gonna have to walk to each of these cities.
Yeah.
I can't just fly?
This was a sort of double-edged sword because she was incredibly vulnerable. Had she arrived with her full team in tow, she'd have just started working her way around exploring and seeing what there was to find. However, she practically limped off the boat into Vermilion, so she wasn't exactly in a rush to start picking fights. Unlike most players, instead of diving right into the first gym, she had to take the scenic route and start encountering some new friends.
Oh my god, I got a Fanpy! It's so cute!
The beauty of having an entire new continent to explore was that she had tons of new Pokemon she could catch. There are plenty of encounters to be had in all the new routes and cities, so she set out on a bit of a collect-a-thon. Ironically, it's not just Kanto Pokemon either. For whatever reason, many of the new Gen 2 Pokemon are exclusively caught in Kanto, so she wasn't quite done meeting fresh faces.
What did I get? What did I get? What did I get? A lantern! Yeah!
But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Obviously, the first major priority she had was to rebuild her team, but there were actually a handful of places she could catch Pokemon in Johto still that she either skipped or missed by mistake. Between all the routes she missed, as well as even some gift Pokemon, Johto still had a lot to offer. She couldn't really afford to be picky quite yet, so she pretty much used whatever she could find. The good news is there are no bad Pokemon, only bad trainers.
Wait, I just got a Dratini! Oh my god!
In the previous video, I mentioned some minor changes she encountered in this game, but there are some major ones that were made even more apparent now that she was back in familiar stomping grounds.
Oh, it's nighttime now.
Something I didn't really get to touch on before was the new day and night cycle. This was a change implemented back in the original Gold and Silver, but was completely absent from FireRed and LeafGreen, so she didn't have any experience with it. The main ramification it had on her playthrough was that it changed which Pokemon she could encounter in each area. The majority of her playtime took place in the evenings after work, so she had plenty of evening and nighttime encounters.
A little Houndour! Look at how cute little Crucible looks.
During her trip back to Johto, I also steered her back to Mr. Pokemon's house to pick up the extremely useful Experience Share. Picking this up earlier would have been a godsend, so she was a little irritated I didn't tell her about it sooner. But to be honest, I think she was doing just fine on her own. Either way, she's got a lot of grinding ahead of her, and this would help ease the burden a little bit.
Oh my god! Circus is evolving! Deep, 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 deep. Oh, Circus looks so cool!
The other nice thing about exploring a new region was there are tons of new trainers to battle. It was always going to be a tall order asking her to grind all the way back up to the 50s, but I think being able to do it on a lot of trainer battles instead of just purely wild encounters made it a lot less of a drag. The funny thing is that figuring out where to train was sort of a toss-up for her. She'd go from encountering level 15 Pidgeys in the grass to battling a trainer with level 45s. Add in the fact she was leading with whichever weak Pokemon was trying to catch up, and you've got yourself a pretty gnarly walk to the next town.
Holy shit! Why is leveling so dicey?
I was noticing her using the bike a lot more to get around in Kanto.
I'm running through puddles! Ah!
And I think it was because of an underlying level of impatience over having to do everything again.
He just body blocked me.
On the one hand, it was exciting to revisit things, but at the heart of it all, I think she just missed her old Pokemon. Every time we encountered one from her original team, she'd sigh and look longingly at what once was.
Her Bayleaf makes me miss my Bayleaf. I miss my Lapras. Oh, Jeeb! It hurts.
Despite being at a level disadvantage, she was finding she could hold her own reasonably well with the Kanto gym leaders. After a few of her Pokemon caught up to her Espeon, she decided she was fed up with grinding and wanted to just get into it and see what Kanto was all about.
You don't want to Thunderbolt.
Luckily, the bold strategy ended up paying off, as trainers and gym leaders gave much better experience than what she was finding out in the world.
Welcome to Kanto, Tarny.
Many gym leaders didn't even have 4 Pokemon, so for the most part, they looked a lot scarier than they were.
She looks so good. Oh. Okay, this is the only instance where I can accept white pants.
Because of how underleveled and understaffed her team was, it became clear really quickly where her weaknesses were. Being so much lower leveled meant she needed every advantage she could get. It's a good thing she knew what the Kanto gym leaders' typings were, because it gave her an idea of what to prepare for. Type advantages were what gave her the edge she needed to push ahead against Pokemon that were higher than her. Because of this, it was painfully clear which type were her weakness. For example, every time a grass type would come out, she'd have no clue what to do about it.
Tangela. 32. Swirl cannot.
Usually when a single type is causing you this many problems, it's an invitation to take a look at your team and get to the bottom of what's not working.
Oh my god!
It wasn't the best feeling in the world to feel like every fight was a matter of life and death for the few Pokemon she had left. There were battles where she'd sweep an opponent with no issues, and then there were battles where one Pokemon would put her entire team into jeopardy.
Oh. It's not fire.
Obviously, it only made things more awkward that half her team was still training the other half.
Oh my god, get Crucible out of there.
At this point, she's completely over critical hits. Half the Pokemon she lost to lands went down because of crits, and according to her, it's unfair because she never gets them. That might be a bit of an over-exaggeration, but in her defense, she seems to only get them when they don't even matter. Even when RNG is in her favor, it's important to realize criticals are a staple part of these games. Planning your moves around them isn't a bad idea when you're playing with these rules, because you never know when you're going to get screwed. Either way, I think everyone can relate to the feeling of losing a Pokemon to a crit in a Nuzlocke.
Are you kidding me?
Arguably the biggest change she still hadn't got used to was the physical special split. In prior generations, a move was determined by its type. So for example, every fire move was considered special by virtue of belonging to the fire type. Any fire type with a high physical attack wouldn't benefit from using fire moves because those actually use their special attack stats instead. That said, no matter how many times we sat down to discuss how it worked, it always felt like we just ended up running in circles.
Moves either used attack or special attack depending on the type.
Like type like fire or water?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the past, all water moves were special.
Oh, like just if you were a water Pokemon, you were like a special Pokemon.
No, there were water Pokemon that had high attack, and so their water moves weren't as good.
I'm getting so confused.
How about Gengar? Let's take Gengar, for example. Okay, so Gengar was a ghost type. So Gengar has a really high special attack, but Ghost, which Gengar's a ghost poison type.
Okay.
Both ghost and poison are physical, or were physical back in the day. You couldn't benefit from his special attack using ghost and poison moves. So you were better off using like fire moves or ice moves or electric moves on a Gengar, because Gengar couldn't do as much damage using a ghost move.
Okay, I have so many questions. First of all, how the hell is a ghost physical?
Oh, God.
In the grand scheme of things, it wasn't necessarily something that was going to make or break her team, but it was something she'd need to get the hang of if she wanted a better chance in future games. There's a lot of numbers thrown around, it can be overwhelming, but at some point it'll all just click.
Okay, that one makes sense because like punching, clawing.
Yeah, so think about like,
seems more
so
physical.
Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee,
They would just be physical.
they're just physical. They're fighting types. They have
makes
really
sense.
high attack, right?
Okay.
Well, they learn like Ice Punch and like Thunder Kick and all that. Those were special back in the day, so they kind of sucked, right?
Oh,
But
and
now
they're physical, so
that they're
good.
physical, they have all this coverage because they can do all these cool physical elemental attacks, and they actually will do decent damage.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so you can see the benefits of why they made that change.
Up until now, she's been an offense-only type of gal. Every time a Pokemon tries to learn a status move, she usually turns her nose in the air to it. I guess you could say she followed the why would I want to boost my attack when I could have hit twice line of thought. Status moves aren't terribly useful in the main story anyways, and you can usually get away with just clicking super effective moves until you win. I can say I never appreciated status moves until I got my first taste of competitive battling with other human beings.
Okay, so looking here, Ember. Is this special or a special?
That's special.
And then, but beat up and bite, those are physical?
Yes.
And howl, is that special?
That's a status.
Oh, so that doesn't really matter.
So why am I even bringing this up? Well, while shopping around for new moves in Kanto, she stumbled upon the TM for Stealth Rock, and it was life-changing. And when she first found it, she was kinda nonplussed, but when I mentioned how it lasts the entire battle, her ears perked up. That's when I explained how entry hazards worked. It was like I'd handed her forbidden knowledge. A move that was super easy to set up at the beginning of a fight, and one that she could see helping her throughout the entire fight. Well, that was almost too good to be true.
Nice.
Even dealing tiny damage on a switch got her hyped up, and Stealth Rock became a core part of her strategies.
Who did the Stealth Rocks?
Yeah.
Nice.
It always made me laugh how casually she'd refer to the Kanto gym leaders.
What's up, bro?
She's been through her fair share of gym battles, and she knows a thing or two about Pokemon nowadays. Meeting up with all the old gym leaders was fun, because she talked to them like they were her old friends.
Do you know what they call people like you? Pests. I fixed the whole power plant, and Misty has the gall to call me a pest?
She challenged the gyms in a bit of an odd order, but if you follow the traditional route of the game, you'll talk to them out of order anyways. With that said, they make sure that you'll always face the same one last.
Look at all those gym badges, by the way.
Yeah.
15 badges right now.
15.
Of all the new gym leaders, there was one she wasn't expecting to run into.
Blue! It's Noiki, my rival! I was once the Kanto champion, although it was short-lived thanks to Red. I did beat him!
Back from the previous game, the earlier incarnation of me has returned to seek vengeance. I've mentioned it before, but one of my favorite parts of having her experience these games for the first time is getting to see her reaction to all the twists that blew all our minds back in grade school.
It's the Earth Badge! Yo! Da, 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 da.
After allowing her to believe that Blue was the final boss of the game and that Mount Silver was an optional endgame area, I warned her she might want to train a bit before making the climb to the summit. Considering she'd spent the entire post-game underleveled and was finally starting to feel like she was on par with her team approaching level 60, this didn't exactly land well with her. She ended up burning out from the grind approaching 65 and decided she was willing to be a little underleveled for whatever was on the mountain. When she asked if that was how to get Lugia, I told her no, but that there was a legend waiting for her at the top.
It's me! 88 Pikachu! It's a level 88! What the fuck? Oh god! Wait, I thought there was a legendary.
Yeah, I said there was a legend.
Oh my god. This is such a dramatic level difference from everything I've seen so far. Yep, I knew he was gonna do that. His mom doesn't even know where he is, and he's just standing on top of a mountain in short sleeves in the snow. And he got the poison. The hail and the poison. Oh my god, bro!
That was so unlucky.
Oh my god. I don't like this!
I can't believe that. I'm at the edge of my seat, Taryn.
Oh my god, get him out of here.
That was tough.
Stealth Rock took her out.
Stealth Rock took her out.
Stealth Rock took him out.
Your hazards are amazing.
My Snorlax is way lower than his Snorlax. Oh, come on. Hit yourself, hit yourself. Ugh. But after this round, the hail.
Oh my god. The hail.
The hail took him out.
All hail the hail.
Oh.
For 70% accuracy.
70%. Oh god.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
You ate it up.
We did.
He's not gonna land every one of those.
Another one?
This Blastoise is using hacks.
Good lord.
Oh, that was crit.
Oh my god, that was huge. Dimple! The rocks! And he's been. Oh my god! He uses the freaking full restore. What?
He had another one this whole time?
Oh my god. Circus. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay.
Come on, Dimple. Dimple's your highest level.
Come on, Dimple.
The hail!
The hail! The hail! The hail!
Dimple is a hero!
Dimple is a hero again! I have 2 Pokemon left!
The hail!
The hail!
Oh my god. Dimple saves the day again.
Dimple saves the day again!
Having collected 8 more gym badges and defeating yet another champion, she can finally say she's beaten HeartGold. Although yet again her beloved Pokemon were massacred.
That was another massacre.
How many Pokemon are you gonna kill in this playthrough?
Oh my god.
let's not forget they're not technically dead and are just living happily on a farm in the sky. It's finally time for her to close the Johto chapter of her journey. But as one adventure ends, another one is just beginning.
He's back!
I'm so happy.
Although the cost was heavy, she achieved a great victory. So wipe away those tears, because a champion belongs on her feet. There's still plenty more to come, but she's earned herself a rest. Now, even more so than before, I can say I'm dating a Pokemon master.
By the way, your son's on top of a mountain.